to turn to Psalm 25. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. Verse 1. O my God, I trust in you. Let me not be ashamed. Let not my enemies triumph over me. Indeed, let no one who waits on you be ashamed. Pay attention to verse 3. Indeed, let no one who waits on you be ashamed. Let those be ashamed who deal treacherously without a cause. Show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. On you I wait all the day. Okay, I want to make a point that this is a learned behavior. Waiting on the Lord is a learned behavior, and when you first put your trust in the Lord, learning to wait on the Lord is not an easy thing. You don't even really know you need to do it, and you don't really understand it. What I'm going to try to do this morning is give you a key to the presence and power of the Lord, if you will understand, but it's still going to be something you have to learn over time, and you gradually learn it a little. I remember when I was first made aware of the presence of the Lord, I was in the Crossroads Coffee House. I was 20 years old, and I had just recently been filled with the Holy Spirit. I was sitting, and they were having a Monday night praise and worship, and it was kind of like, Samuel, what he's doing. They just had a couple of guitars, and they were singing, and everybody was singing and worshiping. And, people would lift their hands, and that was weird to me and odd and strange, and they would sing, and that was strange and odd to me as well. And, all of those kind of things were odd and strange because I had, I just was more reserved, and I was held back, and I didn't understand. And so I'm in that meeting, and I've told this story before from the pulpit. But I was in the meeting, and Margaret Fredericks, who was one of the leaders, Margaret was 38 years old. And the presence of God rested on her. And it was like the light of the Lord was like resting on her, and you could almost physically see the radiance of the Lord on her. She had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and told that she only had a few weeks to live, go home and die. And God gave her 7 years, and in 7 years she saw all her family come to Christ, all of her sisters and brothers. She saw her children, her husband come to Christ. She saw many others come to Christ, and they reached out to young people in the area, and they literally saw hundreds of young people come in and come to Christ. And I was one of those people who came into that ministry because of my cousin, who was a heroin addict, had got set free, and I was intrigued by that because I'd never seen anybody get set free from heroin just instantaneously, power broken. And so I wanted to know, what was going on. And so he took me out there, and one thing led to another, and I just started learning how where I had been saying no to Jesus, I began to learn how to say yes to Jesus, but it was a learned experience. But I was sitting there in the meeting, they started worshiping, and Margaret came over and sat down beside me, and I was like, whoa, I was kind of scared of her. She's a powerful woman of God. She'd have been 18 years older than me, and she came down and sat beside me, and I thought it odd that she sat beside me, but she did, and I didn't know why. And so the meeting started going on, and all of a sudden she leans over to me and she said, Mike, what is the Lord doing? I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you asking me? You're the leader. Don't look at me. How would I know? Who would tell me? Did you have a book that told me what was going to happen tonight or something? And she said, what you need to do. I said, I don't know what's going on, Margaret. She said, what you need to do is I want you to be still for a minute and listen. Be still for a minute and listen. Okay, and when I first started, I would only have to be still for a minute and listen. But as I grew in the Lord, I had to wait. And I didn't wait for just a minute. Sometimes I had to meditate for long periods of time But when I listened for a minute, immediately the Spirit of God began speaking to me. And that was the first time my heart was awakened to the anointing and the presence of the Lord and the voice of the Lord. And so then she waits a few minutes and she turns back to me and she said, "Are you hearing anything, or did you see anything, or what's the Lord telling you?" I said, "Well, actually, I think what's happening is this, this, and this." And I began to tell her, and she said, "That's exactly correct." And I thought, "Oh, that's incredible." Okay. And now, those of y'all who know, I told you this story too. When I first was diagnosed with cancer, Logan came to me. Logan has never done that before that time and hasn't done it since that time. But when y'all prayed for me, the first time I found out I had cancer, Logan came to me and he gave me 3 words. One was isolated, one was contained, and one was something else. I can't remember. And
Encapsulated.
what?
Encapsulated.
Encapsulated? Okay. And so, whether it was or not, I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't make any difference. I got them on my phone. I saved it, put it down. And basically, that's what happened to my cancer. It just stopped right there. And it was contained for the last 3 years. And then I felt like the Lord wanted me to go to the doctor. And so when I went to the doctor, they began to test, and they said it suddenly started growing. And we need to deal with it. And so that's why I'm doing chemo and everything. And that's one of those things where Logan was just praying and he listened. In a moment of time, he was listening and he heard. Okay. "Show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. On you I wait all the day." Okay. Notice Margaret just said, take a minute or two and just wait on the Lord. Okay, no doubt she was praying next to me, "Lord, speak to him. He's so deaf and dumb he can't hear or speak or nothing. Speak to his heart, let him hear, open his ears." She probably was praying all those things, and I didn't even know it. But this said, "I will wait all day. Remember, O Lord, your tender mercies, your loving kindness, for they are from old. Do not remember the sins of my youth, nor my transgressions. According to your mercy, remember me for your goodness' sake, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore he teaches sinners in the way." Notice he doesn't teach, it doesn't say he's teaching the righteous in the way. It says he's teaching the sinners in the way. I think we kind of fit into that category. Maybe there's other congregations that are not so sinful, but we fit into that category pretty well. So consequently, he's going to teach us the humble. He guides in justice, and all the paths of the Lord. All the paths of the Lord are mercy and truth. Not a single path that he directs you on is apart from mercy and truth. In other words, when you're walking before the Lord and he's directing your steps, you can trust that he's leading you in mercy and truth, even when you're going through difficult, trying times, even when you're going through joyous exaltation times where things are going great and the Lord just really doing extraordinary things with you. But sometimes when it's not so good and you feel all alone, sometimes amongst crippling temptation, you feel broken. All the paths of the Lord are mercy and truth to such as keep his covenant and his testimonies. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my iniquity, for it is great. Who is the man that fears the Lord? Him shall he teach in the way he chooses. He himself shall dwell in prosperity, and his descendants shall inherit the earth. The secret of the Lord is with those who fear him, and he will show them his covenant. My eyes are ever toward the Lord, for he shall pluck my feet out of the net. Turn yourself to me and have mercy on me, for I am desolate and afflicted. The troubles of my heart have enlarged. Anybody deal with that? The troubles of my heart are enlarged. I'm going through a difficult path. It's kind of troublesome, and my work, my job, the people I'm having to deal with, relationship, my spouse, my children, whatever the things I'm dealing with, bring me out of my distresses. Look on my affliction and my pain. Forgive all my sins. Consider my enemies, Lord, for they are many, and they hate me with cruel hatred. Keep my soul and deliver me. Let me not be ashamed, for I put my trust in you. Let integrity and righteousness preserve me, for I wait on you. Whew. Redeem Israel, O God, out of their troubles. For I wait on you. There is an attitude of the heart where a person chooses to wait upon the Lord. And so they begin to wait. I'm going to turn over to Exodus, and I'm going to turn to chapter 24. I'm going to turn to 24, and I'm going to read from there in a moment, but I want to try to speak and share with you for just a minute, kind of from my heart. I have the privilege of speaking this because I happen to be the person that is probably the most guilty of this thing I'm about to talk about. Every one of you, every single one of you, I don't care who you are, has had an acquaintance, maybe even a friend, a relationship, a family member who talks all the time. Okay? Do you know my father had 4 boys, and we all went to work with my dad every day. And do you know that never once did I ever hear him turn to the other boys and say, Gary's the oldest, Dale, my brother, just passed away, is the second, I'm third, and Brian's fourth. Never did my dad ever turn to Gary, the oldest one, and say, you need to just hush up. He never said that to him. He never said to Dale, Dale, can you just be quiet? My dad never used the word shut up. He would not use it. It was an unclean word to him. He would say, hush up. He'd say, be quiet. You need to be still. Okay. But when it made it to the third son, me, that was something that I heard frequently. Mike, you need to just be quiet. You need to hush up. We went to see a bank president one day, and my dad said to me, now I want you to keep your mouth shut. I'm like, why did you say that to me? I mean, I can't imagine why you would have said that to me. I was about 8 at the time, maybe 7 at the time. I want you to hush up. I want you to be quiet. All of us know what it's like to have somebody who's talking all the time. And so what I want to do is I want to teach you something that will absolutely revolutionize your relationship with the Lord if you will listen to me for just a few minutes. I'm guilty of talking too much. One of my strongest suits is to be able to speak. But all of you know that one of your strongest suits, always with it comes this thin line that you can cross over, and your strength becomes your weakness. And that's what happens with speaking. And so what happened is, we suddenly come into relationship with God. I might add that it's the Lord God Almighty. His name is Alpha and Omega. He is from forever past and forever forward will be. And he is without end in his understanding. His knowledge passes all the knowledge of everybody who ever lived, and everybody who ever supposed what the earth was like or what the stars were like or anything. He knows the answer. He knows everything, and yet when we come into relationship with him, We're like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old. We're talking all the time. Hey, let me show you this little toy. It wasn't that long ago, some time back, Scott Harms and his little boy were with me in a truck. Tanner was his name. He was 7 years old. And we put him in the back seat of the truck, and Scott and I got in the front. We were driving. And Tanner could not be quiet. You got to see my truck. You got to see my truck. You know, I'm in the front seat driving. He's trying to show me. He's reaching over the seat. You got to see it. You got to see it. You got to see. You got to see. Oh, you notice this. Pay attention to this. I mean, Tanner, you need to hush up. You know, I just had to, you know, kind of bring on my dad, you know, and Tanner, you need to hush up, you know, and amazingly, when my dad would say that to me, I would. I thought, well, I wasn't even talking, you know, and it was probably sounding like Tanner to him, but anyway. And so what happens is we come to the Lord, and that's us in relationship with the Lord, in the presence of the Lord. Well, I got to show you this thing in a minute. Oh, you know, oh, there's this thing I'm dealing with. Oh, I got, you know, my job, oh, the money situation, and you know, and these jerks I'm hanging out with. Blah 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 blah. Why do I have a spouse like this? Why is my wife like this? Why is my husband like this? Blah 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 blah. My children, the grandchildren, the great grandchildren. They're just, you know, never stops. And so I want to know, what is the Lord's response to that? And so I'm coming here to Exodus 24. God has told Moses, I'm just going to kind of tell the story. He told Moses, I want you to come up on the mountain. And when you get up on the mountain, it's the most amazing thing in the world to me. The elders, Aaron, and his sons are there, and the elders are there, and they go up the mountain, and the Lord tells them, I want you to stop and stay farther away. He told the people, you can't even come to the base of the mountain. If you touch the mountain, you will die instantly, or you will be stoned to death. Okay? And so the people had to stay in the outer court. The elders got to go into the inner court, part way up the mountain, but he told them, now you stop there. And then he calls Moses and said, Moses, I want you to come on up. And it tells us that Joshua was Moses' servant. And Joshua goes with Moses up the mountain. He has the privilege of going with Moses up the mountain, probably because he had learned to keep his mouth shut, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, so he goes up the mountain with Moses. But I want you to listen to this verse here. Verse 12, we're going to read from 12 of chapter 24, Exodus. Then the Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and be there. Whoa. Come up the mountain and be there. How many of y'all ever had a parent? Well, I guess all of us had parents. But maybe they weren't all like my mother, but my mother and my dad. But my mother, she'd pull up to a store, a department store, and she would say, y'all wait here, I'll be back in a few minutes. We all knew what that meant. That meant she wasn't coming back for a couple hours. And we were stuck there in the car. Now, I want you to stay in the car. You can roll down the windows, but I want you to stay in the car, and I'll be back in a few minutes. And it is an agony of waiting, an agony of waiting, an agony of waiting, an agony of waiting. Waiting, 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 waiting. By then, we're hanging out of the windows of the car, climbing on the roof of the car, you know, 4 boys, you know, between 1 and 8 or 2 and 8 or something, you know, getting into all kinds of trouble. It's a miracle that we couldn't figure out a way to hotwire the car and start it and drive away, you know, but I mean, and had we been a little older, we probably would have done that. Okay. My dad, 1,000 times, would pull up somewhere and he'd say, y'all wait here, I got to go talk to this guy for a minute. And he would go negotiate a horse deal. If any of y'all have ever seen a horse deal negotiated, it's not a quick thing. It's not a 4-minute, 5-minute thing. It's something where there is a waiting and a waiting and a waiting and a waiting. Well, we'd get out of the truck. My dad wouldn't make us stay in the truck. We'd get out of the truck. We'd open the tailgate. We'd sit on the tailgate, and we'd sit there waiting, exhausted, waiting. He tells Moses, I want you to come near to me and be there. I want you to remain in my presence and be there. Well, what am I supposed to do? Can I at least take my iPhone with me and do Facebook? Or I want you to come into my presence and be there. I looked this up in the Hebrew. Take a guess what it means. Be there. It means be there. It doesn't even go into much more depth than that. I just want you to be there. Okay. It tells us that the glory of God has descended upon the mountain, and the elders were able to see the image of God through the cloud that obscured him. They could see pavement under his feet, heavenly pavement of sapphires under his feet, where his footstool would be. But the presence of God, the strong presence of God was there on the mountain. The glory of the Lord had descended upon the mountain. And Moses remains there for 6 days, not eating or drinking. I wondered why the Lord did not let the others come up. And I have to assume it's because he knew what was in their hearts. They didn't really want to be there. Being there was not something they did well. It was not something they had developed. They could not tolerate the presence of God. Their heart, the half-heartedness, their contentedness in themselves, their complete confidence in their ability to accomplish whatever it was they needed to accomplish was in their heart. And so as a result, they didn't come in a spirit of humility. And so he says, you stay over there. And he holds them away from him at a great distance. And it said they ate and drank. So they continued eating and drinking. Moses doesn't eat or drink, nor would Joshua have eaten or drink. Probably he was there without something to eat. But he goes there, and on the 7th day, God speaks to Moses and says, come near to me. And it says that God manifest like a fire on the mountain, and Moses entered into the darkness of that fiery cloud. And from the people's point of view, they saw the whole mountain on fire. But Moses went into the presence of the Lord in the glory of the Lord. And many of you all say, well, I waited on the Lord for 3 minutes and I just could not find the glory. I couldn't find the anointing. I didn't know where he was. I listened for him, but I couldn't hear him. I was looking for him, but I didn't see him. And I get it, guys. Trust me, I get it. You have never met anybody who was more impatient and unable to wait. When I first got filled with the Holy Spirit, when I was first called to the Lord, when I first heard his call, when I first surrendered to his calling, God was merciful to me because he knew I could barely wait a minute. We have a whole society of people right now who, when somebody posts something on Facebook, let's say they post their second-year-old's birthday party on Facebook and they put a picture, they can't even hold their tongue for 13 seconds. They'll say, oh, well, did you think about getting a bouncy house? Or why didn't you think about getting a clown to come in? Did you think about going to here or doing this or doing that? Or, the criticism, this barrage of communication that is not thoughtful, it's not well thought out, it's not considered or anything. There's not even the slightest consideration. And the Lord says to Moses, come and just be there. What an incredible command. I just want you to be in my presence. But Lord, I've got a lot of things to say. I've got a lot of things to tell you about. There's been a lot going on. You need to hear these things. I know you haven't seen my affliction. I know you're not aware of what I'm going through. I know that you're not paying attention. Let me tell you how it really is down here. And so, being the patient Father that He is, and the gracious Father that He is, He listens to us talk nonstop. Blah, 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 blah. And then finally, when we exhaust ourselves of speaking, He might say to us, are you ready to listen? We just read in Psalm 25, I wait on the Lord all day long, and I find that He teaches sinners in the way. He instructs them in the way. He teaches them in the way. Because their heart is set on the Lord, because they have chosen to wait on the Lord, they have found themselves experiencing the growth and the transformation. And some of you all are looking for growth and transformation, but you haven't stopped talking long enough to listen to the Spirit of the Lord or to His presence. You have not become aware of the fact that the moment that you called on His name, He was right there listening. Instead, we're trying to make enough noise, because if we'll make enough noise, then like me as a child, when I was in the truck and my dad, I guess I thought if I spoke long enough that eventually they would listen to me. I'm going to encourage you all to do something. I want you to go into His presence and wait there in your time of prayer. That when you come to a time of prayer, your moment of prayer, when you want to lift up the burdens of your family, we read in Psalm 25, my heart is enlarged because of the afflictions and the burdens that he's got a lot on his heart. He's burdened deeply. He's being affected. The next time your family goes through a trial or a difficulty or something, I want to encourage you to go to the presence of the Lord and say, Lord, my heart is enlarged, but in your presence I wait all the day long. I wait for you, Lord. I wait for you. I delight in you. After 6 days, on the seventh day, the Lord speaks to Moses and says, come on in. And He has waited for 6 days. I think it's important to understand in Leviticus 8, when the priests of the Lord were set apart and consecrated unto the Lord, after they had sprinkled them with blood, after they had sprinkled them with oil, after they had waved the wave offering, after they had sacrificed, after they had the burnt offering and all the things that they did, they then had to go in before the Lord and shut themselves in the Lord, in before the Lord, and they were shut in there for 7 days. And on the 8th day, the glory of the Lord descends on the crowd so heavily that everybody there fell on their face, because the glory of God descended. And in that time of consecration, they're sacrificing every day, every day, every day, every day. And I think that time of Moses being there without being told what to do or how to do it, or without being given any further instruction. All he heard was, I want you to come up the mountain, and I want you to be there, and I will give you the 10 Commandments, and I will give you the law for the people, so that you can teach the people. You all, this is so simple of a message. My greatest concern is that it will go in one ear and out the other ear, and we won't hear it. You all can't imagine how important this aspect is to experiencing the glory of the Lord descending upon your life, pouring out on your life and out from you to others, when you go and you just say, Lord, I do have a lot of things on my heart, but right now I just want to be with you. And sometimes my mind is so distracted. I'm one of those people that has a mind that won't shut off. That no matter what I'm doing, it's going 90 miles a second. Thoughts. You can't imagine how many times I'd go to bed, lay down to go to sleep, exhausted, and lay down to go to sleep, lie there for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I think of 9 things I've got to do in the morning that I need, it's important. And I would have to learn to get a piece of paper, set it on my nightstand, or I could write down those things to get them out of my head, or else I'd think about them for 4 hours and not go to sleep. But in this time, to come before the Lord and just say, Lord, I just want to be with you. How many of you had a friend who, if every time you tried to tell a story or every time you tried to open your mouth, they immediately began speaking and blurting out? Okay, those of you who are friends with me, you've experienced that. So, I mean, every one of you knows what I'm talking about. But if you have a friend like that, if they never let you get in a word in edgewise or speak or tell your story, you won't hang with them. You'll actually withdraw from them at some point. You may still hang with them because you like them, but you can only handle so much of them. And so you pull back. And Tim Maxon's one of those kind of guys. He just was so... He's running 100 miles an hour all at once, in 20 directions, moving in 20 directions. I was the same way, so when I met Tim, he didn't intimidate me. And so I just hung with him. And every now and then after he'd finished blabbing his head off, then I'd say, well, you know what I think? And he'd go, well, no, I don't. Well, do you want to? Yeah, I do. Well, I think such and such and so and so. And suddenly he realized, oh my goodness, I could have been listening to this all along, and so he learned something, and that's how he learned. But the thing was, I wasn't impatient. I just, I would listen. And there was a time when I could speak, and that's what God does with so many of us. He's listening, and then as soon as we finish, quote-unquote, praying, then we jump up and say, well, see you later, Lord, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I've got, you're gone. Or later in the day. And the Lord doesn't get a word in edgewise. If you're in a relationship with somebody, shouldn't at least part of the time be listening? Shouldn't at least some of the time be listening? Shouldn't you be listening for the voice of the Lord? Those of you who are new in the Lord, maybe some of you are new in the Lord, you don't hear the voice of the Lord because you're not listening. Some of you haven't been trained to hear the voice of the Lord. Margaret trained me. She just said to me, Mike, if you'll just be still for a minute and listen. I was like, listen to what? I'm there in my chair thinking, listen to what? I don't know. She asked me, what is the Lord doing? And so I thought, well, Lord, what are you doing? And he immediately began talking to me. But I had put myself in a position to hear him. Do you see what I'm saying? And so what we're going to do, you shared with me you're going to go up to Newton. And the Lord wants to use you in Newton. In other words, He wants to gift you and use you and move through you. Okay, so what you need to do is before you go up there with Dina, you're going to set yourself apart and you're going to listen to the Lord and say, Lord, I don't know if I can hear you right. I don't know if I can discern what you want me to do. But Lord, I want to be open to hear from you and show me what I need, what you want me to do. Show me what you want me to share. Show me what word is you want to put in my heart. You hear what I'm saying? And if you'll do that, the Lord will speak to you. Powerful. Extraordinarily powerful. Many people come to me and say, I can't hear the voice of the Lord. I can't hear the voice of the Lord. But what they fail to realize is even in their listening, they've learned to be constantly thinking about everything and figuring everything out while they're listening, and so consequently they never can listen. It actually takes a humbling of the spirit. It takes humility. What is the Lord saying to the church? I want you to come near to my presence, and I want you to just be there. I just want you to be there. Lord, I waited yesterday for 5 minutes. And some of you, 5 minutes is a long time, and that's okay. Then take that 5 minutes and learn. But what if he wanted you to wait 6 minutes? Could you have waited another minute? He said to the disciples a couple of times, I remember, could you not tarry at 1 hour? That was after 3 years of training. They couldn't wait 1 hour. You know, many of us have been trained for 20 years and can't even wait 10 minutes. But what I found was my mind sometimes is distracted. What helps me is sometimes I'll put on worship music, and sometimes I don't want any words. I'll just put on an instrumental, because sometimes even the words distract me. Sometimes the words help me. So I'll turn on music and I just listen. And what am I listening for? I'm listening for the voice of the Lord in case he wants to speak to me. And here's one of the things I hear from the Lord when I go and sit in his presence for an hour, which is not unusual for me, or multiple hours. Sometimes I meditate all day long on the presence of the Lord. And I hear the Lord say to me, Mike, what's on your heart? What's burdening you? And then I open up and I tell him. But when I just come in and unload like a little boy wanting to tell somebody about their little toy or whatever, the Lord just waits. And he's waiting for us to wait on him. Wait on the Lord. You shall renew your strength. The Lord will cause the renewing of your strength, those that wait on the Lord. So if you're dealing with great difficulty and trial, if your family is, sometimes it's just a child that's a wayward child, or a grandchild that's a wayward child. Sometimes it's just health burdens and issues. And so we just wait on the Lord. The Lord has heard every thought I have about cancer and chemotherapy. I don't go to the Lord and ask much of the Lord about it now. I just wait in his presence. And I'm listening for his voice. So I went to do my chemos. I take noise canceling headphones, and I put them on. And I play music, worship music. And the first week, everybody that was there was kind of quiet, and I just put those on. In 2 hours I listened and just had a real good time in the presence of the Lord. The next time I went back, somebody said something to me, and so I pulled the headphones off because I can't hear them when they're talking. And so, I tried to communicate. And so, but the third time, there was a lady there, and she was there for her last round of chemo. And I look at her, and I see that the Lord is wanting to heal her from cancer. I mean, I heard the voice of the Lord as clear as day. And they had said her name, so I spoke her name. She's in a wheelchair preparing to leave. They tell me it's her last chemo. She's not coming back. And I told her, I said, I was just sitting here listening to the voice of the Lord, and He said He wants to heal you. I said, would you let me pray for you? And she said, oh, yes. So weak, so broken. And I was able to pray for her. The lady across the room said, I'll pray too. So we prayed for her, and she left. And I said, no, this isn't just for now. We're going to continue to pray, and I'm going to continue to pray every time the thought of you comes to my mind. I'm going to pray. And I'm praying for the healing and the deliverance of the Lord to come. Last time I went in was my 4th time this week. I went to put the headphones on, I put them on, and the lady across the room said something to me, so I pulled them back up, and she said, are you learning the language? I started to say a heavenly language, but that was another thing. But I said, no, I'm not that sophisticated. I was just listening to music. She wanted to talk. She was very insecure. She didn't know what she was facing. And so I realized the Lord didn't want me to put the headphones on, and I just took them to the side, and I began to interact with her. And then the guy next to me wanted to interact, and I interacted with him. And I said, and then there was another lady there, and she was kind of curled up like this, and she didn't want to look at anybody or anything. And I could sense the presence of the Lord resting on her heavier than everybody else. I said, now all of you in this room, are you aware that I'm praying for you while I'm sitting here? And they looked up like, what? I said, oh yeah. I said, I spend my time here. I'm praying for you all. And so while my burden on my heart is, Lord, I'm going through chemo and I'm going through cancer issues, and the Lord's saying, Mike, I want you to bring the presence of the Lord to these that are right around you. How many of you all know that Moses was in that cloud of the glory of the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights, and he didn't eat or drink? The Lord was his substance, and Joshua would have been there with him. And then they came down out of the mountain, and when they came out of the mountain, the glory of the Lord shone out from him. But he had been tasked with a task. He was going to teach the people. Moses was going to teach the people the law of the Lord. He was going to teach them the difference between the clean and the unclean, between the holy and the profane. And every one of you all, you may be one day in the Lord, one week in the Lord. You may just have been baptized last night. I mean, there's no telling. And by the way, that's a way cool thing. When you say yes to Jesus, it's a way cool thing. But when you're in that situation, you may be 1 day, 2 days, 4 days, but the Lord wants you to experience his presence, the actual heavy weight of the glory and the presence of the Lord resting on you, so that you can share with others also. Because somebody is not as far along as you are. And so even though you got baptized last night, there's a guy getting baptized this morning somewhere. And you have something to say to him. Man, it was like incredible, And you can share with him. Let's go to the Lord in prayer.